We got draft and free agency updates from Bulls insider K.C. Johnson only 2 days before the NBA draft. Who is he hearing that is most likely the Chicago Bulls take? We're going to talk about that. Plus, the Chicago Bulls work out a new interesting prospect days before the NBA draft. And what's the update on Coby White? We're going to get to all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. And we got a couple of updates in regards to the draft from K.C. Johnson. He was just on CHSN on the fast break, where he goes through a number of news items kind of in succession to get them off. And one of the things that he talked about there is the Chicago Bulls. And he mentioned that the two names that he's hearing most around the Chicago Bulls and their draft interest are Collin Murray Boyles and Noe Essengue. And this is an interesting turn because this is not really what we've heard over the last couple of weeks. Now, I've said it before. I do think that K.C. Johnson does hear his stuff directly from somebody with the Bulls, whether that means that it's him to kind of help kind of throw teams off the scent, or if he's hearing kind of exactly what the teams are going to want to do. Somebody did point out that that I don't think K.C. Johnson has ever successfully predicted the Chicago Bulls draft pick, so take that for what you will. But the information that K.C. Johnson gave is that Collin Murray Boyles and Noe Essengue are the names that he is hearing the most commonly around the Chicago Bulls. Now, we've talked a lot about Collin Murray Boyles here. I'm not the highest on him, mainly because of the position question there and also the offense and how he scored in college versus how that's going to look at the NBA level. But one thing that nobody can take away from Collin Murray Boyles, I don't care how high or not you are on him, but one thing you cannot take away from him is that defensively, he is going to be a beast defensively in the NBA. And what do the Chicago Bulls need? They do need defense. So while I'm not the highest on Collin Murray Boyles, I can say that I do see where he can definitely fit in at right away as far as bringing that defensive intensity. Now, I've been clear here. I don't think any of these rookies start under Billy Donovan in year one. I just don't think that's going to be the thing. So that could be that they don't necessarily look for his offense right away, similar to what Ayo Dosunmu basically. When Ayo first started cracking the rotation, it was for what he brought defensively, not necessarily for him bringing something crazy, on the offensive side of the ball. It was more so defensively, and then he grew offensively as that season went on. So Collin Murray Boyles, who has such a high floor defensively, and could definitely be the type of player that you can see turning into a perennial defensive player of the year. That's how good Collin Murray Boyles' defense is. Where my concerns come in on the offensive side, mainly is because he was able to operate as a high volume, high usage player, and with not necessarily the greatest results. He had the same number of assists as turnovers, which is not necessarily great there. But one thing you can't take away from Collin Murray Boyles is that regardless of the position, the elite defense is definitely there, and he's a physical presence. And sometimes you just need those guys, like I said with Johnny Broome, for example, that's just tough son of a bitches. And Collin Murray Boyles is tough. So, we'll see what happens there. Still not my favorite prospect in this draft by any stretch of the imagination. But if the Bulls do draft him, I could kind of start seeing why. And one of the reasons my perspective, not on Collin Murray Boyles specifically, has changed, but in regards to the Bulls, is that the Bulls have 5 players. Once they re-sign Josh Giddey, they have 5 players under contract at the end of next season. So while I've been a lot focused on the current fit of this team, the whole team could look extremely different between the beginning of the season and the beginning of the following season. So because of that, the fit could very drastically change. The next player, though, that K.C. Johnson brought up is Noe Essengue. I believe I was murdering his name. I believe that's how you do it. But this is a guy, 6'9", 18 years old, one of the youngest players in this draft. He can play a lot of different positions, and the athleticism is absolutely crazy. Where some of the negatives come in for Noe is that he doesn't have that true kind of NBA skill yet, right? He's basically linky everywhere around. He's going to have to put on some serious weight at only 194 pounds at being 6'9", and he's going to have to figure out how to deal with that physicality at the NBA level, right? And so I think that that's the thing that you have to look at for. Now, he did play against the Portland Trail Blazers in a preseason game last year with his international team where he did score 20 points and hit 3 3-pointers, and he had 8 rebounds in that as well. So for those that are looking at it like me and worried about kind of the NBA physicality part of it, I mean, you can see that. He's an unselfish player when it comes down to it, but I do think that he is going to be a project, and that just is what it is. Now, a lot of these players are going to be projects at different levels, but I do think that when it comes down to like, it's we'll see how it gets. He does have solid touch around the basket as well, right? But it's going to be a while before you really see him kind of the finished product physically, and therefore it's kind of hard to determine what his play style and even his skill is going to be. But this is a guy that it's all potential for him right away. And if you can really develop that skill and you have time and patience to develop that with him, I could definitely see him working out. But that's what K.C. Johnson had. 2 guys, Noe Essengue and also, or Essengue, is it Essengue? Anyway, you got Noah there, and you also have Collin Murray Boyles as the 2 players that K.C. Johnson mentioned less than an hour ago as being the 2 names that he's most commonly here mocked to the Chicago Bulls. Now, he also updated on Derrick Queen. He did say that he could see Derrick Queen falling in this draft. There's really been nothing that he's heard around Derrick Queen and the Chicago Bulls. That's something he said before, but K.C. Johnson likes Derrick Queen, right? So it's not that K.C.'s trying to project his personal thoughts, because anytime K.C. talks about Derrick Queen and his own feelings, he's actually pretty high on Derrick Queen, but it seems like there's not much that he's hearing around the Chicago Bulls and the front office interest in Derrick Queen. But again, maybe that's to throw teams off the scent, right? So you never know what's going to happen there. But the other player that I want to talk about as far as the draft, over the last couple of days, the Chicago Bulls did work out Juan Berringer for the team. This is a 6'11" power forward / center. He's 230 pounds. Still needs to put on some weight at the NBA level, but this is a guy who has athleticism is crazy. The shot blocking ability is crazy. The lob threat, he can be there. He can be that right away. Ridiculous upside from Berringer here. As I talked about when I went into a more detailed thing on him, this is a guy that he's also a player that, despite him needing to put on a little bit of weight, he's 230. He's not 190, for example, like Noah, but he doesn't shy away from toughness and physicality, and that's really good, especially for European players that you want to see that toughness there right away. I think that's really good there. I do think that he doesn't create for himself. He doesn't take jump shots all the way yet a lot, right? So those are things you're going to have to work out with his game, but I think as setting screens, being a rim runner, being a shot blocker, and a decent enough rebounder, that's going to be things that you're looking for him right away that I think he's definitely going to be able to. That if you get him out in open space, like the Chicago Bulls like to do with getting out in transition, playing fast, I'm telling you what, that's a dude that's going to be, he's going to be catching lobs and dunking on people's heads right away, day one. Do not be surprised if you see him and Modest Buzelis just knocking down people, right, when it comes down to it. So I think that, but this is definitely an upside pick. There's so much, he's so raw that the comps for him is so widely all over the place, and this would be the Bulls taking more of an upside pick. But I do think somebody that at the bare minimum, because of athleticism, because of his toughness, because of his shot blocking, and his ability to be a lob threat, that I do think he has a clear role in the NBA. Just what level and caliber that's going to be is really going to come down to how he rounds out his game and how the Bulls or any team does develop him. But, you know, I like to keep it updated. So that now brings the Chicago Bulls, as far as projected first-round picks that they have interviewed, Carter Bryant, Igor Dimon, Asa Newell, Juan Berringer, Danny Wolf, and Drake Powell. So now we're up to 6 first-round prospects that the Chicago Bulls have brought in for in-personal workouts. There's somebody who left a comment the other day going off of another YouTube page that was actually capping to say that the Bulls worked out Rasheer Fleming and somebody else in May 30th. I've done my research on that. They have not brought in Rasheer Fleming for a private workout. So if anybody who's hearing that or seeing that, that is cap. That is not true. They have not brought them in for a private workout. I do believe they met with Rasheer Fleming at the draft combine, and that may be where some of that's getting a little misconstrued at, but they have not brought them in for private workouts. Now, to end this, a little bit of what K.C. Johnson also talked about was Coby White. And it's not going to be long here. He said that as far as what he's hearing now is that the Bulls are having no interest in moving Coby White. Now, when you think about what they were rumored to be offered for Coby White from the Orlando Magic, which we don't know if they turned it down or the Magic found a better deal for Desmond Bane and wanted that deal and that player more, right? Because of his ability to be, the fact that he's already locked into a contract. But as he's hearing right now internally, there's no desire to move Coby White. And so, we'll see what that means. And again, Casey Johnson was good to preface that as far as what he's hearing, right? Which that can change any day. The team could wake up, a team could make an offer that maybe they thought wouldn't make an offer. That can change any day of the week. But per what Casey Johnson is saying, that's not something that's on the table. I know there's going to be something that's disappointing for some Bulls fans that want to see Coby White moved, that think that it's all about Coby White being moved for XYZ. And I've said it many times before. I don't think Coby holds the value that some Bulls fans have on the open market. That's what I personally thought. Now, the Orlando Magic offer could buck that, right, for sure. But I think when it all comes down to it, that the Bulls, if they truly did turn down or even take time and hesitate on that offer, I think that does show that there's more thought that Coby should be staying here with Chicago. At least that's the personal way that I'm taking it. You guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. Wanted to give the quick update. You guys know when news drops, we drop. It's very simple here at Chicago Bulls Central. Make sure you're following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like we like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. We'll be here bright and early tomorrow, man. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.